Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? The combine is over. Everybody has gone home. All the players have tested all they're going to test. And now all we have to do is parse through the results and somehow figure out which results are meaningful and which ones aren't. Always fun to do. So, I've been covering the combine as it's gone on, but now that it's over and we've had a chance to step back and really take a look at everything that happened during that week in Indianapolis, I wanted to do a video where I kind of summarized all the players who had good combines, who the Seahawks are probably especially interested in going forward. And when I say all of them, of course, that's a little bit of hyperbole. There's no way I'm going to be able to get all of them, but I'm going to do what I can to cover the guys who stood out to me with their combine performance, who the Seahawks may have logical interest in. Now, this is going to be as comprehensive as I can make it, so we're going to repeat some names. You're going to hear some guys that we've already talked about a little bit, but I have a feeling that a pretty good chunk of the Seahawks big board going forward is going to consist of players that I talk about in this next part. In some cases, we have confirmation. The team is already meeting with some of these players. This team has met with some of these players. They had an especially keen eye on them when they were doing drills at the Senior Bowl. They sent scouts out to check them out at their colleges, etc. So in some cases we already know, but in a lot of cases we're just trying to make assumptions. And I'm going to go position by position, and I'm going to talk about one or two guys that I think this team might really be targeting right now. So we're going to mostly stick to the positions where it would make sense for the Seahawks to have a significant need going into 2022. But of course, everything is scaled, right? Like, I'm not really going to talk about a tight end who's going to go in the second round, because we're not going to spend a second round pick on a tight end, almost certainly. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about players who are specifically only going to be good in a 4-3, because it sounds like we're moving away from that. I'm not going to talk about guys who are going to definitely go in the first round, top 20, top 15, top 10, because we don't have picks in that area. So everything is kind of through a Seahawks lens, but obviously everything I say about any of these players could apply to any team. And I think that any team, if they're able to use these players right, would be pretty happy to select any of these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the offense, starting with running back. Okay, two running backs who caught my eye at the combine. This first guy is somebody who has kind of been the best running back combine performance this year. Everyone already kind of knows this guy, Breece Hall. I believe he's from Iowa. He ran a really good 40 time, 4.39, which was impressive because he also weighed in at 217 pounds. So Breece Hall has gone from a guy who I saw as a fourth round pick at some points in the offseason to he may end up being an early second round pick. Now, I know what you're saying. How can we possibly use a second round pick on a running back? Well, I don't want to rule it out. If we lose Penny, if we cut Carson, which I still think is on the table, we lose Alex Collins, you don't really have anything there. And if you don't sign anybody in free agency and you take care of your other needs via free agency, and the best or second best running back in the draft is sitting there at number 42, I might be tempted. So Breece Hall, I think, is on the Seahawks' radar. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Rashad Penny. He's got great breakaway speed that some scouts didn't think he had, and he's got some serious weight to him. So Breece Hall. The second guy who caught my attention at the combine was Pierre Strong. He ran an even better 40 time, 4.37. He's a little lighter than Breece Hall, but he's probably more well-rounded. He was a great receiver out of the backfield. He moved really well in the flats when he was doing those drills at the combine. And unlike Breece Hall, Pierre Strong is a guy who, even after his good combine performance, is probably going to be a fourth round pick. Maybe he bumps up a little bit, but you could get him later. So even if you bring back guys like Penny, even if you bring in a guy like my guy Marlon Mack, you could still get Pierre Strong in the fourth round potentially, and I think you get great value there. All right, so tight end. This isn't very creative, and I've already talked about him a little bit, but to me the guy is Jelani Woods. I like physical freak tight ends. Some of them don't work out, but the ones that do really work out. And Jelani Woods has the added benefit of being somebody who's probably still not going to go that high in the draft because he wasn't that productive. This guy is 6'7", about 260 pounds. He ran a 4.640, which was really impressive because most tight ends didn't push numbers like that. And he also had 24 bench reps, which I think was leading among all tight ends in this combine. So I'm looking at Jelani Woods and I'm seeing a guy who could be somebody who gets slept on in college because they didn't use him right. They didn't really understand how to unleash him. So he gets to slip through the draft. I think Jimmy Graham was kind of like that as well. And then he gets to the NFL and his skill set is such that he's able to really surprise people. Even after his combine, I don't think he's going to be any higher than a 5th round pick. We'll see where this goes. But Jelani Woods would be a guy that I have firmly in my sights if we got down to the 5th round and he's still there. Offensive tackle, again, I'm going to talk about a guy that a lot of people have already spoken about, Abraham Lucas. He had a great combine, and I really want to emphasize this because we know the team is looking at him. We know the team sees some good stuff in him. We know the team is very potentially going to take Abraham Lucas. So I want to really kind of hammer this fact home that he had a great combine, ran a 4.9240. He's 315 pounds, by the way, so that's a very impressive 40 time for that size. He showed great agility, showed great footwork. He had great pop in his hands when he was hitting the blockers, and he basically did everything that you could expect from an Abraham Lucas. He showed great pass blocking ability. There's really something exciting here potentially, and before the combine, he was looked at as a 3rd round pick. I think he may sneak into that 2nd round. And if the next couple months go really well for him, you could even see him in the mid to early 2nd, so you may have to use your top pick on him. We'll see where this goes, but it is possible that in order to bring Abraham Lucas to the Seahawks, you will need to use your number 42 overall pick. Maybe you can trade down a little bit, pick up another pick later and get another guy, but I think that if this continues to go the way it's going right now, you're looking at a top 50 pick for Abraham Lucas at the least. Moving along the offensive line, I want to talk about guard a little bit, which is something I haven't spent a ton of time on this offseason because for the moment, I think our guard position is settled if we bring back Phil Haynes particularly. But one guy clearly has the interest of the Seahawks, and there is the ability to get better at guard. It's Cole Strange. This guy tested really well too at the combine, 6'5", 307 pounds. He ran a 5.0340, which is pretty good for an interior guard. That tells you that he'll be a good fit for the Waldron scheme. And if you take a look at our current guards on this team right now, one knock you could put against them is that they're not great fits for this scheme. So Cole Strange could come in and probably do a lot of the things that Gabe Jackson and especially Damian Lewis can't do. And it's not just straight line speed for Strange. He had one of the best 3 cones, one of the best shuttles, and one of the best broad jumps among interior offensive linemen. He also had 31 reps on the bench press. So that was near the tops for guards, I believe. And as of right now, even after his combine bump, Cole Strange is probably going to be a 3rd to 4th round pick. He is considered to be a little bit green. Maybe you wouldn't want him to be a day 1 starter. But Cole Strange clearly fits what we're trying to do on this offense, in my opinion. And I think that if you get down to the 4th round and he's still there, we'll see where the next couple months takes us there. But if he's there, I think you would be hard-pressed to pass up on him as an heir apparent to Gabe Jackson and maybe even pushing Damian Lewis. I don't know where Damian Lewis is going to go from here. Obviously, he regressed heavily. We'll see. Next up, center. The guys who caught my eye here were Dylan Parham. He's played, I think, guard at, it was either LSU or Louisville. Sorry, I've got some colleges scrambled in my head. Or maybe it was Memphis. I don't know, dude. I've looked at so many college names lately. But Dylan Parham ran a really nice 40 time, 4.93, so 4.9 almost. Weighs 311 pounds, so he's a little bigger than you would expect a zone scheme center to be, but he can move. He's got great power. He's got good agility. He's very smooth in the way that he moves. And if you got him, he could probably, I don't know if he would be a day 1 starter, but I think he would become a starter pretty quickly. It looks like you're going to have to use a 2nd or 3rd round pick to get him, so maybe, look, if you really want to hit the offensive line hard in this draft, then maybe the play would be to trade your second round pick, move down, find a way to get a mid to late second round pick and an early third round pick, use the first pick on Abraham Lucas, and use the second on Dylan Parham. Those would be two foundational pieces of your offensive line for however long you wanted to keep them in all likelihood. I think both those guys are going to be good. They both had good combines. That's one way to go about it. The other guy who turned heads at the combine, and this one's more of a project sleeper at center, is Cam Jurgens. He showed great agility. He showed great power, and he ran a 4.9240. The concern with him is experience. What is he going to be able to give you immediately? Probably not a whole lot. He's somebody who's going to need some time. So in my eyes, if you draft Cam Jurgens in the 5th or 6th round, because that's probably where he's going to go as of right now, 5th or 6th round, and then you bring in a Jason Kelce for 1 year, or you bring in I don't know if you could get Ben Jones for 1 year, or just some really good veteran center for 1 season. I'll say it, my ideal is Jason Kelce, and then you let Cam Jurgens learn behind him for a year, and then he gets to get the opportunity to start in year 2. That would be the ideal. So that's kind of really what I have in my sights right now. More realistic than the Dylan Parham option, because being realistic, if we're going to be straight honest here, I think that it's more likely that the Seahawks are going to look to this draft to address their new needs on defense. So let's turn our attention to the defense now. But those were the offensive guys that stood out to me at the combine for really strong performance and have a logical fit with the Seahawks, given their needs, given what they're going to be targeting in terms of types of players, etc. All right, so the defense, again, we're going to be repeating some names here, but some of these names bear repeating. Nose tackle is Travis Jones. He had a great combine, ran a 4.9240, even though he weighed in at about 325 pounds. He might have to put on a little bit more weight in order to be an NFL nose tackle, but we're splitting hairs there. He's 6'4", he's got big size. He's got great agility. He scored very well on all the defensive tackle drills they do, like the 3-cone and the shuttle, the broad jump, the vert. So he's not just a trash can full of dirt, as Mark Holmes would say. He actually can move. He actually can play in space. He can actually put some pressure on the quarterback as well. I think Travis Jones has clearly declared himself to be worthy of a second-round pick, probably our 42nd overall pick if you want to get him. So that's something I'm very open to. As for the defensive ends, and again, we're talking specifically in a 3-4 here, the two names that stood out at the combine for me would be Philarian Mathis of Alabama and the guy we've already talked about, Logan Hall. So Philarian Mathis, big, but capable of playing end in a 3-4 regardless. He's 6'4", 310 pounds, but he's a phenomenal athlete. He had an elite vertical, elite broad jump, elite shuttle. He showed out for a dude of his size, and it says something that at 310 pounds, they think he's big enough, athletic enough to play end in a 3-4. For reference, he's like 5 inches taller and about the same weight as Poona Ford, and they think he can do it. He's got violent hands, which means that he's going to be able to have some presence rushing the passer. But Mathis is probably going to be a second-round pick, so you're going to have to either trade down a little bit or just straight up use number 42. So Philarian Mathis is number 1 here. The second guy would be Logan Hall. He had a great 40 time 4.88. He's a 6'6", 283-pound guy. He kind of, in my opinion, projects perfectly to being able to play 3-4 end in the NFL. And the fact that he scored so well on his measurables at the combine is very encouraging to me. Again, I think you're looking at a second-round pick and quite possibly your first second-round pick, not a trade down. But if he could shore up your defensive line in this new defense, then I think it would be worth it. So those would be the defensive line guys who stood out to me at the combine. We definitely need to add some stuff there if we're really going to pull off this new defense. So I think there's a very high probability that we use our 42 overall pick on one of those 3 guys. And Normally, I would say we got to address this offensive line, but honestly, I'm kind of cool with it. Of course, we'll see what we do in free agency. Okay, so next up we have outside linebacker, and I've talked about both these guys a lot already, but they have both had good combines, so we're going to revisit it. Boy Mafe from Minnesota, he's a perfect 3-4 outside linebacker. He ran a 4.5340, which is elite for a player who's going to be playing his position. He also had a great vertical. He had a great broad jump, very agile, looked very natural doing the things he's going to have to do as a 3-4 outsider, dropping into space, playing the run. Probably not going to be great immediately, probably going to need some time in the oven, but if we play our cards right in free agency, we can give him that time in the oven. So Boy Mafe would be one of my chief candidates if we did do a small trade down into the late second or early third, because that's where he sits right now to me. And the next guy is Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. Just generally a freak athlete. He had a really nice combine as well. I see him in the same range as Mafe right now, second to third round. He looked very natural dropping into coverage. He looked very fluid moving in space. These are both guys who you don't have to worry about them being able to do the things that outside linebackers do. So given the fact that as of right now we have exactly one guy that we can trust to be dynamic as an outside linebacker in this defense, makes a lot of sense to me that we would strongly consider getting one of those two guys with a second or third round pick. As for inside linebacker, I have one name because a lot of the guys who showed out at the combine are guys who project to be first or second round picks, and I'm just not comfortable doing that. I don't think it's necessary for this team. I wouldn't even start looking at inside linebackers until about the fourth round. But the one guy who stood out to me who could still be in that range would be Troy Anderson from Montana State. Actually played quarterback there as well as inside linebacker, so a player from the 1940s, I guess. But as an inside linebacker, which is where he projects to in the NFL, he ran a 4.4140 and weighed in at 243 pounds. That is insanely good speed for his size. Also a fluid mover, not somebody who's stiff, somebody who can absolutely play in space, play in coverage. And as of right now, even after the good combine, to me, he looks like a fourth round pick. If you could get him in the fourth round, and if you let Bobby go, I would feel pretty good about going into training camp with Troy Anderson and Cody Barton competing for snaps. So that's the linebacker group to me. Obviously, outside linebacker has to be a much bigger concern than inside, but I did find one guy who caught my eye who I think could be available in the right range. And we'll know more about the Bobby situation in the coming weeks, hopefully, but I'm still hopeful that we can either bring him back at a much reduced salary or let him go. So Troy Anderson, to me, is on the table there. Finally, defensive backs. Let's start with the cornerbacks. And everyone's talking about these two guys, so I'm not breaking any new ground here, but Tariq Woolen was the star of the combine final day. My God. 6'4" as a cornerback, okay? Pete Carroll is freaking out over this guy. 205 pounds, ran a 4.2640. 4.26. One of the fastest 40 times at the combine and one of the biggest cornerbacks at the combine. He's a freak athlete as well. And the main concern with him would just be his level of experience and his ability to contribute immediately. He's going to need some time to develop, which is why he currently projects as a third-round pick despite the incredible combine. But, Pete Carroll would love to try to develop this guy, and if anybody could develop the best possible Tariq Woolen, it would be Pete Carroll. The other guy is Zion McCollum. Small school guy, somebody who not a lot of people had heard about, but he tested very well as well, and he has Pete Carroll's fingerprints all over him. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, 4.3340, so he's actually very fast. He's a great overall athlete. He scored well in the vert, the broad jump, the shuttle. His 10-yard split was very good. And as of right now, despite the incredible combine, he's still probably going to be about a fifth-round pick. We'll see if he goes up from here, but right now, that's a guy you could get on day 3 easily. So if you look at Carroll's history, not really liking to use top 100 picks on cornerbacks, Zion McCollum kind of fits right in. And I'd love to bring him in as a day 3 selection. And finally, safety, I got 2 names here. Again, guys that a lot of people are high on. Lewis Sign, 4.3740, very fast, explosive athlete, great overall athlete. He's 6'2", he's got ideal size. Could definitely play free safety, I think. I think he has the versatility to do either one. You're probably looking at a 2nd or 3rd round pick for him, so maybe more appealing because of that would be a guy like a Nick Cross who tested well. Elite measurables in terms of the shuttle, in terms of the 3-cone, in terms of the vert, the broad jump. And he ran a 4.3440. 3-point would be freaky. 4.3440 time. And as of right now, I think he's going to be about a 4th round pick, so you could get him on day 3 and be somebody that you develop for a year behind a veteran safety, and then maybe he takes the job in 2023. So those are my combine guys, mostly guys who are already pretty well known, but maybe we uncovered a couple guys that you hadn't heard of before. Some very interesting stuff. Hope you guys found this video educational. Another video probably coming later today. Peace out. Go Hawks. Let me know what you thought about the combine, and who do you think we're targeting now?